8:05. We'll want to get everybody out by 9 o'clock. Stay on track.
For
I'll
anyone,
just start. Go ahead, Ed.
real quick. For anyone, I have a hard stop at 9 o'clock, but 6 for me. I'm actually recording I guess a YouTube video, or I don't know where we're gonna put it yet, for 506C on the 120 unit. So I can send that out as well to anyone interested. Just to and we actually have a few links out already of the 506B. But I can share the YouTube link so you guys have that too. Or the cash flow portal link, I should say.
When are you supposed to be closing that, Ed?
The timeline is going to be, it's before Thanksgiving at this point.
Okay.
Because we're waiting on the bank with the loan assumption.
Okay. So how much more money do we need to raise?
We're about 60% funded, but a lot of that is CapEx post closing.
Okay.
So the cash flow portal link I put has a lot more info in there, so you guys can check that out, get a good idea. I don't want to use up the entire call talking about it.
As you're making good progress to meet your goal to get closed.
Yeah, we're definitely working towards that. We're kind of in overdrive right now, and just it's like the home stretch essentially.
Right. Awesome. So, well, welcome to the Broker Outreach Zoom call, folks. Appreciate you guys joining us. For those of you who don't know, I don't have my background here today, Ed. I see that you've got yours up. We are part of the Multifamily Freedom Chasers. If you guys haven't joined the Facebook page, please do so. I imagine you have if you're here. If you would, put in the chat how you found us. That's good information for us to have, to start to understand how people are getting connected to this group. But this particular call started just about a year ago, and I was on somebody else's call. I just happened to catch something popped up in Facebook, as it does, right? You click on a link and you go sign up for something. I signed up for a Zoom, and I went on this broker outreach Zoom, and guys shared a script and made a call, and then was encouraging other people to call. And I mean, nobody was stepping forward to do it. I had already been making calls, and I didn't feel moved to do that on the call. I wanted to kind of sit back and watch other people and be there to help and support and encourage and whatever. And no one was stepping up, so finally I did, right? And I went ahead and made a call, and one other guy did, and he and I connected after, and we just were talking about how much resistance there was to picking the phone and calling. And I said, we decided together to just start our own Zoom and make it a weekly thing, and do that to get people over the fear, get them, and encourage them. And we were doing this during the day. We were making live calls, and that was very difficult to try to make dials, to try to catch somebody live on the phone, to try to engage with you guys, and have a conversation. And so we just decided to move it to the evening. We can listen to recorded calls when that works out, but this just seems to be a better format to be able to engage with you guys and answer questions and have you guys ask questions. So, but that was really the purpose, was to encourage you guys to be picking up the phone and making calls. So, we're part of the Multifamily Freedom Chasers ecosystem. We do multiple calls every week on Sunday nights. I don't know what our cadence is now, Ed. You know how often they're doing this? Yeah. We do an activation Zoom on Sunday nights. It used to be weekly. We don't do that anymore.
I think there's one this week.
I think there is. Just keep an eye on the Facebook group for the events meetings. We do this one every other week. There's a different call every other week on Monday nights. There's underwriting, napkin underwriting Tuesdays. Ed leads that with a couple other guys as well. Then on Wednesdays, we have alternating, it's either a debt call or, other topics, every other week on Wednesday night. So every week there's plenty of information. It's all free. It's always free. Keep coming back. We really appreciate the support. Tell your friends about it and keep networking, folks. This is, nobody does this business alone. Ed's working on it.
Real quick, because I want to jump on the networking. The two forms I have attached in the chat, one is to fill out your information, one is to see everyone else's. What this does is once you fill out your form with your information, you're sharing it with the rest of the community. The other form is everyone else's information that has filled out this the initial form and given their information on how to be contacted, what their skill set is, where they're looking to purchase or invest in, where they live. So if you need boots on the ground, it could be a way to connect with someone in the community, and that could help with you in some way. It's just a way for people who aren't on the calls to connect with each other. As you can see on the list, there's 92 names. I didn't know it got that high. That's pretty cool. So on here, there's not 92 people. But at the end of the day, if you put your info in there, you're kind of open to getting like for people to reach out, and also who we are, so it's not like a stranger. You're breaking the ice right away by saying, hey, I saw you on the MFC list directory, would love to connect. I have XYZ question, and that's kind of the whole idea with it, and a way for everyone to connect and kind of see like, hey, how can you guys work together with each other and with us, like kind of open.
Yeah. And, if you have questions about multifamily and, if you go in the Multifamily Freedom Chasers group and engage there, it's not like, only people within the group that are members of the group are going to see it. It's not like all your friends on Facebook are going to see your stuff about multifamily if you post it within the group. But yeah, I appreciate hearing how some of you folks are connecting. Some of it's through networking. I see somebody got here because of IFI specifically. Somebody else was introduced through an individual person. I can't tell you how many times I'll be at an in-person meeting and somebody will come up to me and say they recognize me. That's happened multiple times that they know me through this Zoom. So, and other Zooms in the multifamily space. So that's another thing I wanted to encourage you guys about. I know when I first started coming to the multifamily Zooms, I was getting a lot of value. I was getting a lot of good information, but I was kind of sitting in the background, right? I wasn't always participating. It's so important to get known in these groups, right? Figure out what your superpower is. Figure out how you can add value. Bringing questions to these Zooms is so valuable because if you have the question, I can almost guarantee you somebody else has the same question, and people are just often too timid to raise their hand and ask it. But there's no such thing as a stupid question. If you have the question, ask it. If we don't have the answer, we'll try to point you in the right direction, right? But I just want to encourage you guys to show up and engage, right? Ask questions, turn on your cameras, get known by the community, because that's how you're going to connect with people that are, that are doing deals, right? Ed's working on this deal right now, and basically everybody that he's working with, he's met through these groups, right? Is there anybody you met live and in person, Ed, on your team, or is it all through?
I didn't meet anyone in person until I went and visited the property at inspection.
Yeah, you didn't know any
that
of
was
them.
my first time ever in Florida, so there's that part of it too. It's kind of hard to meet. My first time in Florida, and it wasn't Miami, which is very sad. And it was when I met the team at the property for inspections. But on that note, because I did get my deal through a broker, so clearly it worked. And the broker's part of the team, which absolutely helps a bunch. So I wanted to jump into that. Are there any questions anyone has about reaching out to brokers, how to do it, what are some struggles you guys have? Because we can talk about, like, we can always bring something up and talk about and go over a few things, but if it's not something, an issue everyone's having, it's not as useful, I think. So is there any specific issue with, or any hurdle or obstacle anyone's having on the broker outreach side?
Actually, I have a question. So, I hear a lot. One of the things that's mentioned quite often is maintaining a good relationship and keeping relationships with brokers. Um, when you're a solo operator, or somebody who's starting out, and you just have so many emails, so many different things from so many different brokers and reaching out, how do you maintain those relationships, or maintain a good relationship with so many different brokers?
That's a very good question. I'm I'm gonna I'm gonna say the answer that most people might not be able to do, and then I'll go to the second option, which most people might not like either, but it's kind of like, what's the sacrifice to get where like to get the deal. First is kind of the way you would follow up with a seller on a call. Like, hey, if you're trying to build a relationship with a seller and you know they're eventually going to sell and you know it can be a great deal, how often are you touching them? Through CRM, text, email, whatever it is, how are you reaching out to them and how often? I think it's a big part of that. Relying on automation isn't necessarily a bad idea. I do know there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm gonna try to figure out exactly how, but I have a buddy who's able to automate it directly from his cell phone, which was really cool. Without using any REI reply or anything like that, as long as you put all your contacts with the same name, like a tag. It was very interesting how he did it. I'm gonna figure out. I'll play around that and see how he did it. Um, but he showed it to me once. So the hard answer for people who have W-2s and don't have the freedom, not freedom, I do this full time, so it's different for me, is follow up with them as often as you can, and but not to a point where you're annoying. Now, the hard answer, which a lot of people can or cannot do, is realtors work on weekends. Whether they like it or not, you sign up for weekends when you sign up for the job. If you're not free during the week because of 9 to 5, put aside a Saturday. Sundays, less likely realtors are working, especially in the commercial space where you're not running around at open houses and showings. Call on Saturdays. If it means you call every Saturday and it takes you a couple hours on a Saturday, do that. If it means you're automating a text or you're texting everyone for an hour, a couple hours, do that. Texting is faster, obviously, because you can do copy paste, and if you whatever the case is, and don't worry about the whole. A lot of people in the investing world are scared of, like soliciting and the whole issues with mass texting. Like if you're texting realtors from your phone, trust me, if any realtor doesn't have their phone number out there and available for everyone to reach out to, what the heck are you doing? Like our one job and goal is to get our phone number out to as many people as possible. So texting a realtor, you don't have to worry about getting fined or sued, or don't worry about all that. Like, hey, my name is this, I'm looking for this, or hey, we spoke before. I'm how's your week been? Any great deals coming up? Just remember, I'm a broker. Like, how do we talk every Wednesday or Monday or every Tuesday? Same thing. Like, we have a relationship because we share something in common, and we're talking about real estate. Realtors are the same way. It's like finding a seller that you're trying to build a relationship, like a rapport with. Find something in common, like whatever it is. If you find out they're a big NFL fan, every Sunday there's a football game. They're a big college fan. Every Saturday there's a college football game. If they're a realtor in the area and you find out what school they went to, hey, you look up the scores. I saw this team win. Cool. Oh, tough loss, whatever. Maybe don't bring up a loss, but you get my point. Like it's very casual stuff like that. Don't make it only about the real estate deal, but it does help, obviously. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like I feel like there's a very long answer, but it's like there are so many different ways to do it, even if it means copying pasting an email, just like, hey, I'm here. And then real quick, I want to go off this point. A lot of people recently I've been hearing, and a lot of people have been telling me like, oh, everyone is waiting for all these deals to hit the market. All these Everyone who got a interest or a loan in 2020, 2021 when rates were super low. Whoever got a bridge debt then, it's gonna be war. Like they're gonna be scrambling to try to sell, and then they be overpaid, and all these deals are gonna hit the market. I'm gonna finish off on this. If you're waiting for that to happen, I'm sorry, you're gonna be really disappointed how many deals are left after everyone else takes them. And I don't mean that in a way of like, oh, you're not gonna find a deal. It's there are so many more deals happening than ever hit the market. That's what's gonna happen to a lot of those. Like whatever deal anyone that's like below the top dogs, I like to call it, whatever we find is because they let us have it. Like there's a lot of deals out there and transactions that happen that we have no idea about. Let's be fair, realtors don't know about them. I tell my realtor friends this: realtors are so far behind investors that a majority of a city's single family homes even could have gone for sale, and a realtor would have never had a clue. The price, the condition, you have no idea until it hits the market again, if it ever does. Same thing with commercial, especially because it's a who do you know business. I can get something into escrow, and no one on this call would have ever known it's going to hit the market. It's very possible. Now, the big reason I say that is don't wait for that panic to come to think I'm going to find a deal. I'm about to hopefully open escrow on my second deal before even closing this one. If you're waiting for the chaos to ensue, there's going to be people who are a lot more prepared on the capital and resources. And let's be honest, if our offer is next to anyone top capital company, we have very little chance. It's just the reality of it because of the resources and the certainty to close.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Ed. I do agree that there are going to be more deals coming in the future than are happening right now. However, this is the time to be planting those seeds, right? This is the time to be establishing those relationships with those brokers. And Dan, I feel your pain, right? Because there's no way you're going to have a close relationship with every broker out there. I mean, it's just not possible, right? But it's going to take repetition right now, right? Because you don't have the reputation of closing deals. So you're going to have to stay top of mind, right? You've got to establish some cadence, right? Maybe weekly is too often probably, but whatever seems to make sense based on your initial phone call, right? Keep a list of these folks and contact them on a consistent basis. Hey, just checking in, didn't know if you had anything. I know you're working on a listing, it's so and so, but do you have anything off market, right? Because that's what we're always looking for, the off market. Not that an on market can't happen, right? Those will happen too. But we want to keep top of mind with, and of course everybody's looking for them, but oh, what happened there?
I shared my screen.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if I got kicked off or something, my whole thing changed. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, establish a cadence that makes sense for you. Stay top of mind. And the other key is when they do send you a lead, you've got to figure out what works for you. You've got to come up with in no more than 5 or 10 minutes, you've got to be able to do a napkin underwrite, right? So you don't want to waste an hour or 2 hours digging through numbers, you've got to know in 5 to 10 minutes, does this deal make sense to go deeper, right? And if it does, then contact them and say, hey, I'm going to get with my team. We're going to do a deeper dive in this one. This one has some interest to me. If it doesn't, tell them why. Say, hey, I'm not going to pursue this one, and here's why. They're asking 6.5 million. Based on my numbers, it looks like I'd only be able to offer 4.8, and that's not that happens all the time, right? Sellers are incredibly unrealistic, especially in this market, and especially we've been talking about interest rates for how long, right? And now interest rates are even higher. And you know, the deal we're looking at an off market deal right now. We have no idea if we're wasting our time, but we're going to submit an LOI. You know, the guy is he's clueless in terms of what the current rates are, and he has an assumable loan, so he wants to sell it at a lower cap rate because he's got a nice interest rate on his assumable loan, but there's only 3 years left. You know, that's okay, but that doesn't get me very excited, right? I've got to underwrite that deal on today's interest rates, because by the time, if we do this deal, by the time we close, we're another 2 months down the road. Now we're what, 2 years and 10 months away from having to refi. I mean, it's just that's not much time, right? So I got a little off track there, but the bottom line is respond to these folks. Make sure you're staying in communication. Make sure you're telling them why you're not pursuing the deals that they're sending to you. And that, if you show them enough repetition, they're going to start to remember you, and they're going to keep bringing you deals, even though you haven't closed the deal yet. So, Barbara, appreciate you raising your hand. What you have a question? What do you got?
I do. You sparked two things.
Awesome.
One is I've heard two different strategies. If a broker either calls me and tells me about a deal, or I get an email about it. I've heard two things. One, you don't contact them until you've underwritten it and you have a pretty good idea what questions you want to ask and what, so that you can look for the whisper price and have some kind of detailed conversation. And then I've heard what sounds like you just said, which is do a quick underwriting and then call them right away.
One thing I think that is good to know and go over when it's like the fine line of, I'm asking your opinion, but I've also done my homework and I'm not asking you because I don't know. I'm curious to get your opinion, especially depending on the relationship with them. I guess over time this becomes easier, where it's like they send you something, it's like, hey, I just want to bounce ideas, bounce numbers, see if I have everything right. Or hey, there's a few things on the T12 or rent roll and whatnot that don't necessarily like add up to me. Like, why is this high or this low? Or do you know if it's sub-meter? Do you know when the last updates were? Hey, I'm trying to get a ballpark on what capex to write based on the condition of everything. Do you know if AC needs to be changed? Like, or do you know how the parking looks like? Things you can't find on your own. Like, hey, just tell me a little bit about what you know about the property. Give me a little backstory. Or do you even know why the seller wants to sell? Or maybe they send you something and you ask, hey, is the seller open to any seller carry possibly? Which I think is becoming more evident and popular in my opinion. I personally like it a lot, as much as you can utilize it. So I think that's really like, hey, thanks for sending this to me. Here's some initial questions I have. And as you ask these questions and have these conversations more often, it's more likely they'll have those answers prepared for you when they do send you a deal. That kind of like that repetition and routine becomes a little easier and more consistent too.
Yeah, I agree. And Barbara, I don't know that there's a definite right answer, right? But I definitely wouldn't spend a ton of time before I call them back, right? You've got to be, if you start reaching out to brokers, you're going to have a lot of deals presented to you, of deals,
Okay.
a lot of leads presented to you.
Okay.
And you just can't spend a lot of time on each of these things. You'll drive yourself crazy, especially if you have a W-2. I mean, you can spend a little bit more time if this is all you do all day, every day, but you're going to want a quick method. That's what we do on Tuesday nights, right? The napkin underwrite. You're going to want to get used to looking at some basic high-level numbers to find out, just at least have an idea where you're at, right? What's the seller expectation? Are they trying to sell at a cap rate that's reasonable? Or are they trying to sell at a cap rate that maybe they could have gotten to? Right. And that's where, that's at the end of the day, that's where you're going to find most of these things, right? And look, that price can make sense if we get our terms.
Right.
But if they're not willing to carry any and they want to sell at a 5 cap, yeah, well, they're out of their mind. It's just they're going to own it. They're either going to own it for a lot longer, or they're going to get serious about their price, and because nobody's paying that today. It's just not going to happen. So, and then of course, what's the asset class? I mean, are there probably still properties trading at a 5 cap for all I know, depending on what market it's in, depending on, if it's class A and all of that, there's still hedge funds with more money than God buying things that you and I could never touch, right? But from these independent owners that we're talking to who are trying to retire, and they're still trying to get, 2021 prices in 2023, it's just not going to happen.
Okay, and then if I could ask just one other question.
Yeah.
Is recently, I have a friend who's not well, and he asked me to help him with the deal. And they want 45 million on this deal, and it's 2 different buildings, so it's a total of around 200 units. Their NOI is negative on one building and and 100,000 on the other building. So even if I do the T3 so that the NOIs become positive, I'm getting to maybe a $9 to $10 million fair value. I've heard 2 different things. My gut is, we've kind of emailed the broker back and forth. My gut is we need to walk away, that they're nowhere in the ballpark, because I think they probably have like $40 million. The broker said they're not taking less than 44. So to me, they're not a real seller at this point,
Right.
Because they're pricing at year 2 pro forma. And I think it was at 5.5 cap. And then I've had a couple other people say to me, well, offer them what you think it's worth. But to me, I can't go in there at $14 million.
So I can have a question.
Mhm.
What discussion have you had with the agent regarding the price and not what the seller wants, what they think it'll trade at?
Right.
He wanted us to underwrite it a little further and then have another conversation with him.
Where's this property located?
It is in North Carolina.
I'm very curious to see the numbers and kind of run through this and see how it ends up looking, because I'm very intrigued on what the discrepancy is. Have they been advertising or marketing for it to sell for a while?
I think it's sort of off market now. I think it passed the call for offers and still sat. So what it appears like is they tried to convert it from all student housing to non-student housing, and their debt is coming due. They had bridge debt that's coming due. So the numbers are starting to look better, but they're saying they're at 85% occupancy. I don't know that they're truly at 85% occupancy.
That's what I was gonna say. They must have a serious occupancy problem for the numbers to be.
I'm not
for it to-
worried about that though, because at the end of the day, you're making an offer based on the information they give you. Within due diligence, you're verifying that information and adjusting accordingly.
And well, the other big detail here is their expense ratio is around 82%.
Okay, well, here's an important question to ask now.
Without their debt.
There's
Okay,
probably a lot of
so-
CapEx in that. That could be a good thing.
No,
Well, hold on, no. I have 2 questions.
advertising, admin, payroll, insurance, and taxes are the big parts of it.
So here's my question. Is the ratio, because the ratio being high and your expenses being high are 2 very different conversations. The ratio is based on how much income you bring in. If my
Correct.
income is low, the ratio is going to look astronomical, but that's
Yeah.
not because expenses are naturally high. It's because my income's so low, it eats up more of my income. Now, if my expenses are high and my income is where it should be, and then that number's at 80%, then that's a completely different conversation. It's what are they doing wrong on the expense side? So it's really important to differentiate the two. Is it 80% because they don't have enough income to justify or to that your fixed expenses, aka tax, insurance, your normal cost, whatever you're gonna have on the expense side, are eating up too far into your income? Or is the income where it should be, but the expenses are astronomically high, whether it is repairs, maintenance, whether it is just really, really poor management at that point? I don't even know if that's enough reason to have that high of an expense ratio. But though that's my first question anytime I hear a ratio that high is why? Like, where is the problem? Income or expense?
I think it's a combination. Because they're trying to say when you look at their pro forma, they're saying your expenses, if I remember correctly, come down to 35%. My feeling is they're probably paying themselves out of their advertising. Their advertising budget was $120,000 on.
That's the NOI at that point. How much isn't that
It
how much
was
they're almost
like
negative?
90. Wait, I'm trying to remember. I think it was like 90,000 on each building. It was
Okay.
ridiculous. It
So-
was. I've underwritten a lot of properties. Haven't gotten one yet, but and they just say they're trying to fill up the building. But I've gone out there and I'm trying to figure out where they're spending this much money. And
have an OM on this and like a T12, and like how much of the how up to date is it?
fairly. The T12 was, I want to see the T12, where are we, October, either July or August.
Let me interrupt you for a second and ask her, would you come to the napkin underwriting tomorrow and bring this deal with you?
Sure, I have to clear it with my friend since it's really his deal, but yeah.
Yeah. No, and you don't have to, you can
No,
come even without clearance from your friend. You don't have to tell us anything about the building.
Okay.
Just come with numbers, right?
Come with numbers. Okay, yeah.
I
That's
agree
good.
with Peter. I don't want to hijack this call too much, but I am very curious to see what the
Well, no, and
fees
it's
are.
obviously it's all related, so it's a great conversation, and we appreciate you bringing.
Okay.
It's all about interacting with the brokers, right? And one of the things that pops up for me in what you said is, right, the broker told you to go do more underwriting and then come back to me. And what I would say to the broker is, I'm not doing any more underwriting until I get more of the story here and have a clue if I have a real seller, because right now we have no seller. We're just we're so far off, it's not even close. And here's why, right? And just put it back in his court and say, look, here's the numbers based on XYZ. I'm at a $9 million offer. They're asking 44. What do you want me to underwrite? There's nothing to underwrite yet.
Here's another to kind of put the cap on this. Here's another interesting idea. Would you even be able to get a loan at that number hypothetically?
Exactly.
That's what you wanted. But here's my next question: do we know if there's an assumable loan? Do we know if the
There is
seller?
not.
Okay.
Would the seller carry any of it?
So I don't think so. Here's my, just so you guys can kind of move on. This is my quick guess. I think they are building a brand new Class A property. And I think they need their funds out of this to finish that. That's my guess.
Yeah, but they don't have any funds in this is the problem. It's not generating enough income. So anyway.
I think they have to get out of this. That's my guess, but I don't know that from the broker.
Well,
but anyway,
so
sorry,
if that's really true,
yeah,
if it's really true and they really need to get out, then there's going to have to be some serious negotiation on what's realistic, right? Either they're going to have to come way off of their price, or they're going to have to offer a whole bunch of financing, one or the two. So, but anyway, again, it's one of those things I wouldn't spend a ton of time
Right.
on, but
That's
I'd
what I was
spend a
getting
little
at.
bit of time just because there's possible motivation, right? Are they motivated enough to get serious? And that's what you need to find at this point. And we don't know that right now, but it
You kind
might
of
be
had
fun to
me at
throw it on the
200
napkin
units.
and see what happens. What's that?
You kind of had me at 200 units, so you piqued my interest
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
that's why I'm curious. But we do have another question, and then I do want to. I didn't just share my screen because of no reason. I do kind of want to show how this can help, like with the whole broker thing. So, Rakesh, go for it.
Hi, this is Rakesh Singh. My name, and I joined from New Jersey. So I'm new to multifamily, although I'm a real estate agent over here. I'm still
Nice.
my W2 job.
That
So
doesn't
I
look like New
understand.
Jersey in the background, Rakesh.
Yeah, that's not definitely not New Jersey. So, so I understand the residential real estate. I got a couple of investment properties. So, what advice would you give to someone who's entering, like maybe into the multifamily, doing the transition? Like, how important is the CRM and the website? And then before I pick up my market, because I'm learning about the underwriting, but that is using the different tools. I'm not familiar with the napkin underwrite method. I would love to join that call tomorrow. But what advice, like, should I be just looking at the maybe what's the capex and what's the capital rate, and then what kind of properties are those, ABC, or maybe things like that, maybe as a starting point, like maybe up to 30 units or 50 units. What advice would you give to a new guy who's entering?
So I can start off real quick by saying this. First would be identify what role you want to play in the equation, because if you don't know that, you don't know who to put around you. And as Peter has mentioned a lot before, and we've mentioned in MFC, this is a massive team sport. Underwriting, I think everyone should know, regardless where you sit on at the table, because at the end of the day, it's really hard to pitch and discuss and like run, like you don't realize how many times you run the numbers during the life of one deal while you're going through it, until you're in it. So I think that's like the bare minimum, just to even be like, okay, don't be an expert, don't have to be the person that does it every day, and don't be the person that's done thousands of it. But if someone's showing you an underwriting, going over, you're bouncing numbers back and forth and ideas, you can at least keep up. I'm not saying going unless you like it, then by all means be my guest, have fun with it. I like it, so I like doing it. But it's also important to understand what's your goal. And my goal is to hit thousands of units because I think it's realistic and because I'm crazy, but that's just me. I think it's possible. I don't see why it's not. And I know people who have that many units, and I'm like, I can do that. And I trust the people around me. I think that's a very goes back to the whole idea of know where, like, what your goal is, so you can surround yourself with the right people. I definitely think I have the right people. I've gotten lucky how I've stumbled upon this group and how it created, and I owe a lot to that to MFC as well, because it's interesting how ways like things work out that way. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the people around you and your goal is 100, you have to know how to maneuver. Are you willing to, like, do you want to invest in your backyard? I personally would love to, but as every day goes on and the more, for lack of a better way to put it, the more shit I deal with here, the less I want to invest in my backyard because it sucks. I live in Los Angeles. California rules suck. I'm over it. I'm not investing in California. I don't care. I'm going east as much as I can, and that's my focus now. So I'm not even bothering. Like every dollar I make here, I'm never moving. Don't get me wrong. Anyone that thinks I'm moving, it's not happening. Every dollar I make here, effort and time, I want out of state because that's where I see the best opportunity. So find your location, figure out your goal, figure out who you want to work with, and I don't think it's a great idea to work with a lot of people who haven't done a deal yet. It's really hard if you have a bunch of people who don't know what they don't know to try to figure it out. Surrounding yourself, there is a good balance of like, hey, I'm willing to learn, put the hours in, and I want to know what to do and how to move in this game. to the person who's like, I can teach you, but as soon as you learn and the ball starts rolling, we're tackling the next one, and then they can spearhead that, which I think is the ideal. You're building like, I'm a sports guy, obviously, like you mentioned.
Right.
Like you can't have a team full of rookies and you can't have a team full of veterans. Neither are gonna win, in my opinion. So having the balance is where I think it's gonna really pay the biggest returns, and just being very clear on what you want.
Okay, so basically, what my skill, which I think is capital raise, because since I'm live, and then there's nothing in my backyard since I live in the blue state like New Jersey, so same thing like you. So I would be, and then the asset management, since I know about like since I'm in the board of director of my single family HOA, so I know about the T12 and PNL and rent roll, so I'm familiar with that. So that's what kind of the asset management capital raise, and then the underwriting. The only piece which is missing is acquisition, and then how to reach out to the brokers. So is it going out to the LoopNet and other broker website as a starting point and put the filters, or to
I was
make that
gonna
initial
go.
conversation?
I was gonna show you guys how, like, a way to find some brokers and identify them using Crexy. But from what you said is, don't try to bite off more tasks you can chew, especially if it's your first deal and you don't know necessarily how each role has to move. Because
Right.
the acquisition side of things the capital raise and asset management, those are two very different monsters. And that's a lot of responsibility on one person if one person is trying to do all of both. Like, there's no way one person, in my opinion, can do all of both of that, because you're just, one, gonna exhaust yourself. Two, it's too reliant on someone who, especially if you haven't done it before. A Grant Cardone can maybe pull that off, and he probably hired someone that's doing it for him anyway, and multiple people, so it doesn't matter. But his name can carry the weight of, I am doing X and Y and Z, but in reality, it's his team, because he's not doing. That's crazy to think one person is doing all that, whether it's your first deal or your 10,000th unit, right?
Okay.
So it's important to have the right people in place with that. But also, sometimes it's not always what you may want to do; it's what you find yourself good at. And then one last thing on the asset management side, it's very hard for anyone who has yet to do a deal, even half cycle, or like getting out of what you initially purchased it at and into some form of stabilization, to say I have experience. I have property management experience doesn't mean I have any clue what the actual asset management looks like on 120 units. I have property management. Cumulatively, it's more than 120 units at one time, but it's different when it's under umbrella, like one roof. Obviously, it's not one roof, but you get my point. When it's multiple, I think multiple buildings makes it harder, but it's a very different monster, because you owe more than anything to your investors. Bottom line, they're investing money believing you're going to take this to the finish line. Now, whether that's the rest of your team or your investors that put their money into the deal, I will never say I can do 120 units my first go by myself. I will never say that, even though I have property management of way over that, like shopping centers, units, apartment buildings, single family, mixture of all of them. It's a different monster. So I think that's a big component of it. Peter, do you want to add something? If not, I was kind of go through the Crexy and how to find brokers.
No, I was actually just in the chat trying to communicate with some folks, specifically Kevin. I know Kevin mentioned that he's a commercial broker, so I was just trying to get a sense of if Kevin, I don't know if you can talk to us or not, but while Ed's queuing up what he wants to do here on Crexy, do you focus on multifamily, or what do you do specifically, or where are you located?
Kevin, you want to make your introduction?
I guess so. So yeah, I'm Kevin Kohler. I'm a commercial broker with KW Commercial out of South Florida, but I cover with a team the entire state, going into Tennessee, Georgia, and the Carolinas. We focus on the Sun Belt, but I don't bother with Texas because I'm not interested in it. So I have a very complex, like, past experience history that's brought me from developing solar farms into real estate, residential, and then moving into commercial, and then into syndication. So I do focus a lot on multifamily, but I also do hospitality, ground up development, retail. I'm a little bit of a generalist, but I would say a majority is either multifamily or hospitality assets. And currently sponsoring a deal actually with Ed in the Panhandle. I don't know if he's ever
Nice.
mentioned that deal right now, but
Couple hundred times.
yeah. So I'm the broker that found the deal with
Awesome.
him, and we decided to take it down together and build that team out and deploy as needed. I also run a property management company servicing South Florida, and diversified myself into being an asset for really anybody who needs assistance in any way, shape, or form. So that's kind of
Awesome.
my elevator pitch.
Hey, appreciate you being here. I see you're also running for Speaker of the House, so that's
Yeah. That's right. It's a
That's
comfortable
part-time.
chair, you know.
That's part-time.
Yeah.
There you go. You got
So-
just about as much chance of me. I don't know if they're gonna figure that out or not, but anyway, good deal. Appreciate you being here, Ed. You wanted to go ahead and
Yeah,
show them
so-
what you were gonna show them on Crexy?
So this is just a very I know a lot of people say LoopNet, but one good thing one thing I do like about Crexy is you do find a lot of good information about a broker. I'm just gonna type Los Angeles because I know no one's even gonna bother here. So it's easy for me to just kind of browse around and say, hey, here are brokers. You do get a good idea of what someone's track record is like on Crexy in regards to actually know here. I'm gonna pick this realtor because I've actually worked with them. I've done a deal with him here in LA, and I do know him personally. So you get an idea of active listings, total square footage, which I think is very odd. But you get an idea of a little bit of a bio, their brokerage or anything about them personally. And you can get an idea of, okay, where are these properties located. You can get an idea of, hey, they are very active. And you know that if they have all these listings, that there's building a relationship with someone who has a lot of listings like this, they're more likely to get than others. It's not a coincidence that they have 25 active listings, 132 million total. Now, does this mean they probably also have a big buyers list? Yes. Does it mean it's gonna be a little harder to get on top of that list, or even be the VIP of that list? Let's be realistic. If I'm a broker and I get a listing, if I get a property and I have it under contract, there's a list of buyers I'm going to show it to first because I know they're going to be the most qualified and most likely to close. They pass on it, then I have another list of people I'm going to send it to, and eventually it's going to hit the market. Because remember, every broker, they have one objective, well, two: get listings under contract and make sure they close. If you're not doing those two things as a broker, you're really not doing your job, to be fair. Everything else is working towards those two goals. Now, prospecting, finding buyers, whatever it is, your two goals are get stuff under contract and make sure they close. Bottom line. So yes, this is going to be a little harder to get on the top of their buyers list, because the best way to show or to basically get on that is okay, can I close? This has 14 active listings, 62 sold, 79. I actually know this person too. And I know they do smaller multifamily stuff. So you can see someone's activity. It's a good way to be okay, is this broker someone? I don't think there's a broker that you are ever wasting your time building a relationship with, but you kind of get an idea of where they're at and what level they're playing at, and you know how to have that conversation. You can say, hey, I see your listing here and here and here. I'm looking for something more similar to A instead of B, or D instead of Z, whatever the case is. And it's hey, you actually spent some time to learn about them. You know where they work out of. You know what brokers they're with. You know what they've done. So you get a good idea of what that broker is about, to be fair. So as you can see, there's 121 pages in Los Angeles. I'm not about to go through all of these, obviously, but this is a very quick and easy way to find brokers in the neighborhood. And you can be specific with asset type. You can be specific with a brokerage, which I personally wouldn't do. You may have a preference of a brokerage, but at the end of the day, the brokerage is just a name and where someone hangs their license. You really care about the person on the other side of it. I'm not too concerned what brokerage they're with. And then you have association. I wouldn't worry about that too much. And then the listing sold, you could play with that if you want to. But this is just like a very quick, easy way on Crexy. It's free. As you can see, I'm not even logged in, so anyone has access to this. And then you just pick your market and have a field day. Like, hey, I want to talk to this person. And then there should be an easy way to get a hold of them. But yeah, you see their listings. If you can't find their information here, or for whatever reason you're struggling with that, if a realtor is not easily found on other means of social media or LoopNet or any other website or Facebook or LinkedIn, whatever you want to call it, it's not hard to get a hold of a realtor, but especially if they're very active. So that's kind of like just a quick thing that I want to show you guys. I know we haven't talked about this one specifically in a while, so this just helps with, hey, I'm looking for brokers to contact based on activity, and maybe one broker specializes in a specific community or market that you're more interested in, or neighborhood than not. So this is just something useful too. Any questions on that or anything else regarding finding brokers in general? This call actually went by really fast. I know we have a lot of different things we kind of touched on, but is there any other questions? We still do have the call tomorrow with the underwriting. So we'll Barbara, I'm definitely, obviously you let me know, but I'm curious to see if we can kind of play around with that deal. If not, we will have something to play around with on the napkin underwrite. Dan, I know I owe you that one. So we got you there. And then yeah, that's kind of the goal. It's just try to reach out to these brokers, find a deal, and bring them tomorrow, and we'll knock them out.
Yeah, that's great. What time is that, Ed?
Same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, what you're suggesting is rather going to the Crexy and find the listing than find the agent and chase the agent, right? Is that the best way? Because there's a lot of listing in Crexy and LoopNet, but unfortunately there isn't one comes with like a 6 or 7 cap rate, or especially in this market, anything below 7 is going to be a disaster for us.
So it's kind of twofold. If you like a property and you're interested, then yeah, call that agent regarding that property. But if you're just like, hey, I just want to talk to agents, I'm not sure exactly where to start, this is one way to go about it. Kevin, go for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I'd say on that comment is actually like, it's one of the most tiresome things I hear when people are like, I only want something over 7, because the truth is you're going to find opportunities if you know where to look. So it's the broker relationships that are going to matter most. For example, the deal we're taking on, we're assuming debt at 3.6%. So you don't need an entry cap at above 7 to be profitable. It matters. The relationship matters the most with the brokers. They're going to be putting properties up on the market at a pricing that their seller wants to see, to one, try and get them more listings. It's part of their business model. And it's our job reaching out as buyers on that side to find out the truth between the lines. So that's where those broker relationships come most in handy, when you can go and you approach them, get a little bit of rapport with a broker, and you're going to have to kind of pick one and just kind of roll the dice with them for a moment, get a little bit of that rapport and start seeing what they're going to be providing you. If they're just sending you random stuff on the market that's visible on LoopNet or visible on Crexy, they're probably not doing too much in terms of trying to provide extra value to you. But if they start sending you a couple addresses that you can't find anywhere else, then you know that they're either tapping into markets or other relationships that they have. Because for me as a broker, that's another big thing too, is the other broker relationships, and not just going on the sites and scouring and hoping I find it before a buyer finds it that's also looking. So does that kind of make sense?
I want to add to that real quick. I mentioned earlier that the brokerage doesn't matter too much. I take a little bit of that back. If they are with a brokerage and you see multiple agents from a specific brokerage, for example, Keller Williams. I used to be there. A lot of people know Keller Williams. You have a better chance of there being that relationship in-house as well. Maybe that listing agent doesn't get all the listings, but hey, I have a buyer. I'm going to tell other agents at my office or in my brokerage, and then maybe someone else has something. One thing that's really big as well, like to Kevin's point, is like brokers know each other and talk to each other, and the better relationship brokers have with each other, there's more likely you're going to do a deal. Just on the residential side, I could say, especially when COVID and the competitiveness of that market was, majority of my deals were done with other agents because I knew who they were. They knew me, and we had a relationship. My buyer wasn't even the most qualified. They weren't even the strongest offer. The other brokers just like, hey, I know you, I know you'll close. I trust you. I'll tell you what your buyers need to do. Hey, buyer, I laid it out for you. You give me the green light. I can't make the call for you, but I set you up the best I possibly can. Let me know how to move. And that's the best you can do. You want to be the buyer in that position. Hey, I can do X, Y, Z. And having a little clarity on what you want, kind of like we mentioned before, helps. If it's like, I want anything under this price with this many units, it gets hard. And I know it's hard to identify what you want until you really dive into it. But that's where, hey, do I have the proper, do I know what I'm playing with? And like I used to say, I love anything outside of California. Now I'm like, I like everything closer to Florida, because it's just like, why am I trying to go away from somewhere that I'm trying to build that base, you know? So do leverage that. I 100% agree with that. I think that's very important as well. And then on the side of like the trial and error with brokers too, it is really important to make sure that hey, it's gonna take a little bit of time to build that rapport. So make sure you're having those conversations, bouncing off ideas, and sometimes even discussing the underwriting with a broker will give you an idea and them an idea of what you're really looking for and what you're looking to take down. So I think that's big too. But yeah, I don't have much else to add unless anyone else does.
You're muted, Pete.
Yep. I appreciate you guys being here. Ed, that hour does go super fast, doesn't it? Especially when you guys show up and participate. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Barbara. Thanks for your questions. And Rakesh and everybody else who asked questions. Kevin, we appreciate you being here. It's great to have a broker show up and give us a little insight. Very helpful. Guys, we'll be here again in 2 weeks. And of course, lots of other meetings in between now and then. So keep an eye on the Facebook page. Come back and join us tomorrow night for some napkin underwriting. We haven't done this in a while. If we get as many people as possible to turn on your cameras, and we'll take a quick picture before we get out of here.
Oh,
and if I can get everybody to get on their phone, call.
We don't do this anymore. We don't call anymore.
No, but that's the whole, like, we gotta do that, right? We're not calling tonight, but
you know, so
we gotta do that tomorrow. Come on.
This was my idea. This is why I hate it so much.
Appreciate you guys showing up. Always great to spend time with you. Thanks for engaging. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Yeah,
appreciate it, guys.
So thank you.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.